Shan and I worked together last year through what ended up being a bit of an impromptu photo shoot prep. It wasn't really the initial intended goal, but we started out really wanting to essentially surprise you, wanted to build out your glutes and just have an overall physique development to like building out your upper body, but certainly with more of an emphasis on the lower body. Shan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your coaching experience.
You're welcome.
Tell me, when we were back before we were starting working together, what was it specifically that made you reach out to inquire about coaching?
So I was relatively new to coaching. I just left Emirates, obviously, at that time. And I was working on the gym floor, long hours, trying to build up my client base. And I feel like I wanted someone to educate me at the same time as obviously working on my own physique. And I'd worked with PTs before, but I was looking for someone who could give me a little bit more detail. And obviously we touched base a few times in the gym. Obviously you were working in there at the time, and every time I had a question for you, you'd come back with a really knowledgeable answer. And I'd watched you coaching your clients one-on-one, and I'd seen how thorough you were with them as well. But yeah, I think I just needed a little bit of direction at the time. I think I was a little bit lost as to what I was doing.
I guess it would probably be fair to say that when you're sort of new to the industry, you are very much looking around at who seems to have a bit of experience and who's someone that I can maybe just, and it doesn't need to necessarily be like swaves of knowledge, so to, but even just the little things you pick up around the gym floor.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, you sort of naturally gravitate towards someone that you maybe feel like, oh, I like the way they do things or the way they sort of explain things. So yeah, that's nice to hear that sort of feedback, that you just resonated with the sort of approach and the responses and the attention to detail, which is always hopefully what we're all trying to sort of get across, is that we care as coaches.
Yeah.
What would you say, for you personally at least, were the biggest challenges or obstacles that you had before starting the coaching process?
Probably the nutrition side for sure. I think we pretty much discovered straight away that I was eating way off what I should have been eating, especially protein wise. I wasn't really like, as you start out in the industry, when you do your PT course, obviously they give you the very basics of how to train someone, but they don't really give you any nutrition. So you're kind of left to figure that out yourself. So I was really struggling with that at the time, and I was finding it really challenging to know what to eat, how much should be eaten. I wasn't tracking my food either at the time. So that was something that I really struggled with. Also, time, because I was on the gym floor so much, I didn't really have time to go away and do that extra education for myself. I was more focused on building my client base at the time. So it was something that I needed someone to go, right, you need to do this, and this is why you need to do it, go and do it. And that was what I needed from a coach at the time. Yeah, I need someone to teach me how to train with structure and nutrition, basically.
It's funny, it's almost that kind of, well, I've got only so much bandwidth that I can deal with. I'm delivering, and you were like, I mean, obviously we were in the gym, the same gym at the time, delivering a lot of sessions in a day, and really the breaks that were left available were really left for two things: to either get some food in or to train. So you didn't really have that much extra time. And so I think that ability to be able to almost outsource or offload the thinking of certain things and just be like, just do this, and I'll explain why we're doing it, but just go do this without having to have decision fatigue or second guess yourself. I think, at least at the time, it seemed like that was quite invaluable to you at that moment in time.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely needed that at the time. Also, I think that yeah, as I said, as a newbie, like I just needed a little bit of direction.
Sure. I just wanted to quickly touch on, before we move on to the next question, about the calories and macros thing. It's quite interesting, and I've come across this more and more as I've been continuing to work with more and more coaches, and especially coaches that are maybe in their first 1 to 2 years in the industry.
Yeah.
They are not as versed in tracking calories and macros as many of the Gen Pop might think. How did you find the transition from not tracking to tracking? Do you feel that that was a fairly straightforward process, or it took a bit of learning?
For me personally, because I eat pretty much the same thing every day, I got into it quite quickly, I think, because it's, if you want, people say they want this flexibility, and I think that I don't know, that can kind of hinder it a little bit. So if you are sticking to the basics like I was, and you are eating the same stuff every day, it does become quite easy to do. But yeah, I can confidently track food now with no problem.
Perfect. And I think the saying goes, flexibility is earned, but if you are tracking repeatability, but with the app and with seeing the numbers, then when you do introduce flexibility, it's, as you found for yourself and as you're finding with your clients now, as you're progressing as a coach and building your experience and knowledge, it's much easier for them to build in those flexible swaps once they understand, at least at the baseline, this is what I'm doing and this is what it
Yeah,
represents.
that's exactly how I work now. I know how much I should eat a day and I know what I should be eating, but I also know how to switch things out because I've done tracking now for like 2 years.
And so I think that's a key lesson for people before we move on, is that it's a process. Like tracking is not something that, oh, it's just super basic and that's it. It is basic at its fundamentals, but learning how to really become skilled at it, that's something that only comes with time and execution as well.
But I think there's something that I spoke to someone about recently and it's really stuck in my brain. And it's that to experience balance, you have to experience periods of imbalance as well. So sticking to those macros, sticking to those calories. Now I am able to, be a bit more flexible because I've experienced the imbalance of being so rigid.
You have a reference point, which is ideal. But what would you say then has been the most significant changes outside of the physical results that we achieved when we were working together?
Probably as a coach, I've definitely grown as a coach and I've taken a lot of what you've taught me into my own coaching and made some of it my own as well. I definitely think that I'm definitely more educated now than I was when I first started with you. Yeah, I learned a lot actually. I learned a lot with you. And there was always like resources as well that you had on the app and stuff like that. And then if I had any questions, you would just fire it forward. So yeah, I think most definitely, and also a bit of my mindset as well. Going through the process of doing the build and the cut has taught me a lot as well, mentally.
What would you say was the biggest takeaway about going through that building up first, which a lot of women don't like to do? They want to diet first, right? And then
Yeah.
even after the diet, it's very lucky if you ever get them to go into a build. But you were great in the sense that you were already in pretty good shape to start with, and you were really willing to be open to the idea of getting into a building phase first. And in the end, well, it worked out quite well in our favor, because when you did go through the photoshoot prep, we had something very tangible to show for it. So what would you say was your biggest lesson going through the build and then down to maintenance and then into that cutting phase and then back, of course, to maintenance again after that?
That you have to experience periods of discomfort to get to where you want to be. Pushing past that barrier of eating 3,300 calories a day, gaining a little bit of body fat and not feeling my best, knowing that was temporary and that it was all part of the process. But yeah, I do think that, like you said, that's where women struggle most. They aren't willing to go past that barrier because it's uncomfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable to get results.
We have to talk about the physical results. Would you say that you were happy with what we were able to achieve? And not just in the dieting, but overall, were you happy with the physical results that you did manage to achieve through the process?
Absolutely. I think obviously we set out on the Bunda protocol and it worked. Like even now where I'm maintaining, glutes have just developed so much and that was my main goal. But yeah, I was happy. Like I'd never done a bulk before, like or a build. I'd never done a build or a fat loss phase like it. So yeah, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but yeah, I was really happy with the results.
So that's one phase within your whole journey. And it's been a while since we last worked together. So I'm quite intrigued to know now. And we've been sort of keeping tabs, but what is next for you when it comes to your health and fitness goals?
Last year I spent a lot of time, well, when I was working with you, working on my personal physique and for my portfolio and to educate myself. And now I'm kind of just maintaining it, my training is taking a little bit of a backseat because I want to focus on my business, because I want to take what I've learned and now be able to pass that on to other people. So at the minute I'm just maintaining, enjoying training. There's not too much pressure. I do have flexibility in my diet. So, I mean, I'm not saying in the future that I wouldn't do another build or another diet. I'm just saying at the minute that for me personally, my personal business is taking the front seat.
That's really cool. And the thing is, I know we've spoke a bit about this off this particular platform, that you wanted to do that. You were wanting to take the time to pour into your business. And I think that's something that when people get into their fitness endeavors, they really miss the boat on that, is that they think they always have to be doing something extreme. They have to either be building, they have to be cutting. But you've sort of hit the nail on the head that the reality is these are fleeting moments in time. They're there to achieve particular outcomes, to achieve certain experiences. But in reality, it is absolutely okay to have your fitness goals become a second or third priority. But I think the key thing that you're doing, which people might hear that and think, oh, well, that's cool, she's sort of taking her foot off the gas. But what you're not doing is that you're not letting your minimum standards drop. That's the thing to do. And that's why they end up in a shitty place, right? So I think the fact is that, yes, you are prioritizing your business. And I think that's exciting and that's really cool. And that's really how the fitness journey should be, is that you sort of go through the seasons of life and it has to fit within that, not the other way around. So I think that's really cool to hear that business is really of the prime focus at the moment, but your fitness goals are still a priority. They're just not as high as they were when you were in a more focused phase.
I think sometimes you have to accept, like, when you are biting off more than you can chew. And, you can't succeed in every single area of your life. So if I want my business to succeed and to be successful, I have to be mature enough to know that I can't be doing everything else on the side as well.
Perfect. Ideal. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's a sensible approach to take. Last but not least, final question for you. If someone watches this video and they're like, I quite like the sound of this. I like what Shan achieved with Ross. Now, I quite like the sound of what it is that Ross does. What would you say to someone who's maybe considering reaching out, but maybe they just haven't yet? They're maybe sitting on the fence. What would you tell that individual about reaching out for coaching?
I would say that if you want to invest in your knowledge, not only your physique, then they should absolutely go for it, because I found with you that it wasn't just my physique, it was other aspects of my coaching and my life as well that improved. And if you want someone who's going to have an answer for every question that you ask, then absolutely you'd be the right person to go with. Any problem that I ever had, you always had an answer for, or you came up with a solution. So I think that you have to think of it not as a cost as well as an investment. As with any coaching, it's an investment into your physique, into your life, into your lifestyle.
First of all, I appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad that you personally got so much value out of the coaching process. And so we'll wrap up there, but thanks so much for your time and best of luck with the building of the business over the coming months.
Thank you.